Hey guys, thanks for tuning in again. Today's topic is whether an employer may require its employees to get a COVID vaccine. This is something that I've seen a little bit of misinformation floating around about. We're here to clear it up. So go ahead, drop a like, subscribe, comment, and let's get started. So let's get right to it. This question of whether an employer can require its employees to get a COVID vaccine is something that is of enormous importance to employers across the country. It's something that employers have been asking since the vaccine got started. So what's the answer? Well, fortunately, the EEOC has provided actually two cases of very, very detailed guidance on this. That guidance having been provided while the EEOC is under pressure from the National Chamber of Commerce, from various city chamber of commerces, state chamber of commerces, local, just about every business advocacy group that you can imagine has been pushing the EEOC to really come out and take a stand on this, and they've done it twice. So we're going to talk about three areas of whether an employer can require its employees to get a COVID vaccine that'll hopefully give you all some guidance. First, can an employer require it? Straight up, what's the general, in most cases, answer to the question? Spoiler alert, yes. Two, are there exceptions? And if so, what are they? Spoiler alert, it's the same as any other ADA exceptions. It's genuinely held religious and medical. Number three, can the employer require documentation? Again, spoiler alert, yes. So you can go on the ADA's website and look at the Job Accommodation Network to review some of the guidance that they've released. And here's one that I'm going to put up on the monitor that says, clear as day. Under the ADA, can an employer require that employees get vaccinated against COVID-19? And this is from May of 2021. And it says the ADA does not prohibit employers from requiring COVID-19 vaccinations. However, if an employer requires vaccination as a condition of employment, various ADA rules may apply. Now, what that tells you is that as an employer, at least under ADA, and there may be other legal requirements that you have to comply with, but at least under ADA, which is really one of the big ones, you're good. You can require vaccinations as a condition of employment. Now, if you have to provide the same kind of outs as you would have to provide under any other ADA situation, reasonable accommodation, sincere religious, disability, all those kinds of things. But as a baseline rule, can you require people to get a COVID vaccine? The answer is yes, you can. In addition, the ADA has gone ahead and provided us another answer to a related question. Again, we're going back to the EEOC's Job Accommodation Network. Number two is asking whether an employee has received a COVID vaccination a disability-related inquiry under the ADA. In no uncertain terms, no. Asking if an employee has received a COVID-19 vaccination is not likely to elicit information about a disability and therefore is not a disability-related inquiry. There you have it. You are good to require vaccinations and to ask your employees whether they have been vaccinated, at least as it regards ADA. There may be other state laws that you have to worry about. We'll talk a little bit more about one of those in a minute when we get to talking about proof of vaccination. But at least under ADA, the EEOC is telling you right here in two press releases in no uncertain terms, as a business owner, you are good. So second question, are there exceptions to the general rule that an employer can require COVID vaccinations of its workforce? Yes, there are. This is the genuinely held religious beliefs and medical exemptions that you may be familiar with. And by the way, if you're an employer and you have required flu vaccines in the past, this is basically the same landscape here, right? That if people have genuine religious objections to the flu vaccine, well, perhaps they also have those genuine religious objections to the COVID vaccine. Let's note that believing that the COVID vaccine has 5G inside it or nanorobots or whatever, probably not a sincerely held religious belief in the sense of ADA that's going to give you that out. Let's go back to the Job Accommodation Network and read one more interesting little tidbit from the EEOC on this. The question submitted is, can an employee who cannot comply with an employer's mandatory COVID-19 vaccination policy because of a disability be excluded from the workplace if they cannot be accommodated to work safely while unvaccinated? And presumably this is talking about someone who has a medical condition that would render them in some sort of significant danger from receiving the vaccine. Again, as noted before, you're probably not talking about some sort of theory of 5G blood robots. The answer is, according to the EEOC, if an employee cannot comply with an employer's mandatory COVID-19 vaccination policy because of a disability and they cannot be reasonably accommodated to safely work, then the employer may exclude the unvaccinated employee from the workplace. But note the next sentence. This does not necessarily mean, however, that the employee may be terminated. There's some threading of the needle to be done here if you're an employer, that you can require vaccines, and if someone cannot safely be vaccinated due to a disability, you can exclude them from the workplace, but you cannot necessarily fire them, right? Reading between the lines, presumably that means something like, hey, you have to let them work remotely, or et cetera, et cetera. We can get a little bit more into this in another video, but just so you know, this guidance from the Job Accommodation Network is there. Third question, can the employer require documentation of your vaccine status? Now, this goes to a theory that is wrong, a little bit of misinformation, let's say, that is spread particularly among kind of anti-vaccine folks. And the theory goes something like this. If your employer requires vaccines, they can't require you to prove that you've been vaccinated. So just lie about it. Just say that you've been vaccinated, and there's no way that they can force you to prove it. That's incorrect. So we're going to go back to the EEOC guidance interpreting the ADA, and we're going to read one of these questions. Under the ADA, is it a disability-related inquiry for an employer to inquire about or request documentation or other confirmation that an employee obtained the COVID-19 vaccine from a third party in the community, such as a pharmacy, personal health care provider, or public clinic? No. When an employer asks employees whether they obtained a COVID vaccine from a third party in the community, such as a pharmacy, personal health care provider, or public clinic, the employer is not asking a question that is likely to disclose the existence of a disability. There are many reasons an employee may not show documentation or other confirmation besides having a disability. Therefore, requesting documentation of or other confirmation of vaccination by a third party is not a disability-related inquiry under the ADA, and the ADA's rules about such inquiries do not apply. And most critically, the last sentence here, however, documentation or other confirmation of vaccination provided by the employee to the employer is medical information about the employee and must be kept confidential. So that's the EEOC very kindly referring us to HIPAA, saying that, look, this vaccination card that your employees are showing you is confidential. It does have to be kept secret. It is PHI, personal health information. So the employer can't, for example, make copies of your vaccination card and go distribute it to everyone in the city. That's not allowed. But they can examine it. They can require it. And again, going back to flu vaccines, going back to other required shots, if you're an employer and you've required flu vaccines before, this is the same ballgame. So that'll do it for today. Hopefully this was a little bit insightful for y'all. Again, check out the EEOC's guidance on this, interpreting the ADA. It's very, very helpful. They've done 2 releases so far. I would say maybe more likely in the future because there's such an enormous pressure on them to provide concrete guidance and to provide actual answers because so many business advocacy groups are concerned about this. So many business advocacy groups want to know exactly where the bright line rules are. Now, in some cases, that's not possible, but stay tuned. Thank you guys very much for tuning in. Like, subscribe, comment. Let me know if there's anything else that you want to see for the next video, and we'll see you next time. Take care.